One of the defining challenges you face in the coming months is how to deliver on your promise to Americans on issues like immigration reform, gun control, voting rights, climate change. All of those right now are facing stiff, united opposition from Republicans on Capitol Hill. How far are you willing to go to achieve those promises that you made to the American people?
Well, I'm good. Look, when I took office, I decided that it was a fairly basic, simple proposition, and that is I got elected to solve problems. And the most urgent problem facing the American people, I stated from the outset, was COVID-19 and the economic dislocation for millions and millions of Americans. And so that's why I put all my focus in the beginning. There were a lot of problems, but all my focus on dealing with those particular problems. And the other problems we're talking about, from immigration to guns and the other things you mentioned, are long-term problems. They've been around a long time. And what we're going to be able to do, God willing, is now begin one at a time to focus on those as well. And whether it's immigration or guns or a number of other problems that face the country. But the fundamental problem is getting people some peace of mind so they can go to bed at night and not stare at the ceiling wondering whether they lost their health insurance, whether they're going to lose a family member, whether they're going to be in a position where they're going to lose their home because they can't pay their mortgage, or the millions of people are going to get thrown out of their homes because of the inability to pay their rent. So we're going to move on these one at a time, try to do as many simultaneously as we can, but that's the reason why I focused as I have. And here's the deal. I think my Republican colleagues are going to have to determine whether or not we want to work together, or they'll decide that the way in which they want to proceed is to just decide to divide the country, continue the politics of division. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to move forward and take these things as they come.
And just to follow up, Mr. President, can your presidency be a success if you can't make progress on those four challenges: climate change, immigration reform, gun control, voting rights?
Well, I plan on making progress on all of them, but that's going to be for the American people to decide. I think, I doubt whether, maybe you did, maybe others did. I thought, many of you thought there was no possibility of my getting the plan I got passed without any Republican votes. Pretty big deal. Got passed. Growing the economy. People's lives are changing. So let's see what happens. All I know, I've been hired to solve problems, not create division.
Now, I'd love to know what you think of any of his answers, beginning with his first one. He's at his best at that moment. He's, got them not fatigued. He's only been standing there for 5 minutes. It goes downhill. But that was the first filibuster question. Here's the second one with Yamiche from PBS, cut number 5.
My follow-up question is, one, if you could talk a little bit about which families, why they're being allowed to stay, what the families that are being allowed to stay, why they're being allowed to stay. In addition to that, when it comes to the filibuster, which is what Zeke was asking about, there's immigration is a big issue, of course, when it related to the filibuster, but there's also Republicans who are passing bill after bill trying to restrict voting rights. Chuck Schumer is calling it an existential threat to democracy. Why not back a filibuster rule that at least gets around issues including voting rights or immigration? Jim Clyburn, someone, of course, who you know very well, has backed the idea of a filibuster rule when it comes to civil rights and voting rights.
Well, a second. Look, Yamiche works for you. She's a PBS employee. I like her. I have worked with her for many years. When I go back in the studio on Meet the Press, I'm not doing Meet the Press until we're back in the studio, but when I do that, I hope Yamiche is there. But Yamiche asked a very left-wing question and phrased it as a left-wing question. Indeed, the president only called on journalists who are, with the Sungmin Kim and Zeke, are pretty straight and narrow. Kristen Welker, straight and narrow. The rest of them are pretty left of center. Yamiche is the hardest left of center, but that's just framed as a left-wing question. I love your phone calls, by the way. Open up the lines, 1-800-520-1234. So Yamiche has asked the question on the filibuster. Here's the answer. Cut number 5. Continue.
I'm going to deal with all of those problems. The question is the priorities as they come and land on my plate. Let's go to the first question you asked, the first of the second questions you asked. And that is, what about dealing with families? Why are some not going back? Because Mexico is refusing to take them back. They're saying they won't take them back, not all of them. We're in negotiations with the president of Mexico. I think we're going to see that change. They should all be going back, all be going back. The only people we're not going to let sitting there on the other side of the Rio Grande by themselves with no help are children. And what we're doing there, and it's an important point to understand. I know you understand it. I don't mean to say it that way. An important point to focus on. The vast majority of people under the age of 18 coming to the United States come with a telephone number on a wristband, or come with a telephone number in their pocket in the United States. A mother, a father, a close relative, a grandmama or grandpa. What was happening before is it's taking literally weeks and weeks and maybe even months before anybody pick up the phone and call to see if there really was someone there.
Stop. That's just a
we've
blatant
set up
lie.
a system now.
It's not true. It's just not true. The vast majority of children do not arrive with a phone number of someone to call. It's simply just not true. If it is true, open up the reception centers and show it to us. It is an urban myth. It is not true. Third question on the filibuster comes from our friend Sungmin Kim of the Washington Post, cut number 6.
To follow up on the filibuster, so do you believe it should take 60 votes to end a filibuster on legislation or 51?
If we could end it with 51, we would have no problem. You're going to have to, the existing rule, it's going to be hard to get a parliamentary ruling that allows 50 votes to end the filibuster, the existence of a filibuster. It's not my expertise in what the parliamentary rules and how to get there.
Now,
but
he's reading.
Our preoccupation with the filibuster is totally legitimate, but in the meantime, we got a lot we can do while we're talking about what we're going to do.
He's often looking down and reading. Last question on the filibuster from Caitlin Collins, cut 11.
For you, but first, I'd like to follow up on a question from Yamiche, and that's on the filibuster.
That counts as a question, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll make it quick. It's a quick question.
You can.
Regarding the filibuster, at John Lewis's funeral, President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
Check, stop.
Yes.
CNN does fact checks. I don't care if President Obama said that at John Lewis's funeral. I don't care if he says it on the steps of his house. I don't care if he walks out in the middle of Pennsylvania Avenue and says it's not true. It's false. It's a lie. So when CNN does that, they're using President Obama's lie to cover their own lie, and they're not fact-checking themselves. 4 questions about the filibuster, because the media is left-wing and wants to change the filibuster, which they did not complain about during the years that Chuck Schumer used the filibuster to frustrate Donald Trump for 4 years. And Republicans don't claim about it because it is an essential nature of the Senate to be a bipartisan body and to slow things down. But we had 4 questions on the filibuster. Bob in Atlanta, what do you think, Bob?
Well, Hugh, I love listening to you, but I like to give you a hard time, too. So I'm going to cross-examine you. I'd like a yes or no answer. Do you think President Biden is that bright? I don't. I don't think he's that bright at all. What is your answer? Can you do a yes or no for me?
Yes or no. I think sometimes he's very bright, but often he exhibits the same sort of slowness that my father, when he was 78, exhibits. How's that?
Well, I'm not talking about that kind of dementia.
Not dementia. I mean, he takes a while to come up with the answer. I think he's bright. He's a learned guy. He's been around. But I think when you get to be 78, it takes a while for the gears to engage. I know it from my dad. I'm sure in 20 years I'll be the same way. It's called the body. It's called the human body slows down. Reagan slowed down. Everybody slows down. I don't think he's got dementia. I just think he's slow. Slow Joe Biden. I called him that before Donald Trump invented his first nickname. Stay tuned, America.